Hello, everybody. Welcome into the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by Mehrob here. We are going to break down everything you need to know about the NBA Finals, the two blockbuster trades that took place over the last couple of days in two different sports. The Red Sox trading away Rafael Devers and the Magic trading for Desmond Bane. We'll talk about that as well as much more. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. We'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Monday, June 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NBA Finals here. Game 5, a pivotal Game 5 here, one that the winner of wins 80% of the series in this situation. Game 4 was just weird. It was a good game, but it was just kind of a weird game. The scripts got flipped for both of these teams. We saw a Thunder comeback in this one. We saw Shea step up huge in that fourth quarter, and now they're back at home. They're favored again. I was looking at the odds, and we talked about this heading into Game 4. Minus 405 is crazy. That is crazy for OKC. Minus 9.5 is a lot of points as well. They were kind of right on the money last time in Game 4. Mehrob, tell me a little bit about this game, because it could really go either way with these two teams with how back and forth it's been so far.
Yeah, this has been a crazy series. We saw the first two games. It looked like the Thunder were in the driver's seat for the most part. Thunder getting out to early leads, taking control of the game. Of course, Game 1, the Pacers ending up coming back and stealing that one. But it's kind of been the script been flipped since it's been in Indiana. Game 3, the Indiana Pacers take control early on and finish that game. Game 4, similar situations. Pacers jump out to an early lead. But this time, it was the Thunder that actually came back late in the game. It was the play of SGA. It was the play of Jalen Williams that was phenomenal. Chet Holmgren with 14 points and 15 rebounds. If the Thunder want to have any chance of winning Game 5 tonight, and I'm picking them as well. They're at home. This is a crucial Game 5, and I think home court advantage is going to be that much more important in this pivotal game. I'm rolling with the Thunder. I think SGA is going to have another monster game. I think Jalen Williams is going to continue to build on what he has so far in this series. He's had 19, 20, 25, and then 27 points in Game 4. That has literally been the stat line from Game 1 to Game 4. I expect him to continue to build on that, to build on his experience. He looks like he's kind of easing into the pressure, or not easing into the pressure, but kind of just getting used to everything, the atmosphere of the NBA Finals. And I think this is the game for the Thunder, and they're going to take a 3-2 lead going back to Indiana.
Yeah, you talk about J-Dub, and we've talked a lot about this punch-counterpunch kind of theme in this series. The big counterpunch for Mark Dagnall and the Thunder in Game 4 was J-Dub. He was the primary ball handler for a lot of that game, bringing the ball up in quarters 1, 2, and a little bit of 3 as well, so that you could save more energy for Shea on the back end. He's not tired. You see what that does, a Shea explosion in the fourth quarter when he is back to being that primary ball handler. You also saw a lot of ball screens from Shea to free up some space on that pick and roll, as opposed to him being the guy with the ball in those screening situations. So it was a lot of off-ball stuff. The punch-counterpunch before had been that high-pressure defense with Nembhard, with Mathurin, with guys coming off of that Pacers bench to step up against Shea, and it worked. It did. He still dropped 35 after a crazy fourth quarter. What is the counterpunch for the Pacers right now? It doesn't feel like there's any obvious solution here, but they're going to have one if they don't want to drop 2 games in a row here in a crucial Game 5.
I feel like they found a little bit of a formula there, Jeremy. Especially, and you brought it up perfectly. Benedict Mathurin having a massive game three, and he was crucial. Obi Toppin's been crucial in this series. We've seen TJ McConnell step up in big time situations. Andrew Nemhard's played phenomenal defense on SGA for most of these last two games. I say most because of that fourth quarter explosion out of SGA, and that ended up leading to the comeback. But I think for the Pacers, I think you need to just kind of erase the last 5 minutes of game four because for the most part, that 30 minutes, 35 minutes that they played in game four, they played phenomenally. They played it to a T. They were rebounding well, they were playing good defense, they were making shots. It was just that last 5 minutes, that last fourth quarter, where they just went ice cold. 5 of 18 from the field, missing all of their threes in the last 9 minutes of the game. Overall, it was just they couldn't make their shots. And on the other side, you have the Oklahoma City Thunder that were SGA, like I said, that poured it on late in that game, having 8 to 10 points in the last 9 minutes of the game. That was the recipe for the Thunder, and that's why I say Game 4 was so crucial. When I was watching that game, I was hell bent that this series was a 3-1 series going back to OKC, and the fact that the Thunder were able to flip the script like that so quickly, I think it was a season. It was just season changing. It's complete. It just flips the script. It flips the whole series on its head.
Yeah, you talk about changing the outcome of it. That game really did feel like the way that the Pacers wanted to play, the way that the Pacers wanted to win that game. But like you said, it was bad shooting, which is part of why that game is weird because the Pacers have been just an incredible shooting team all playoffs long. It wasn't just the Pacers that couldn't make a shot. It was also the Thunder. They made 3 threes, 3 for 17 in that game. That is not a stat line that you genuinely that you would ever expect to win a game, especially an NBA Finals game against such a high-powered offense. Water's going to find its level. Both of these teams probably going to shoot better, but how much was that on the defense, and how much was it that they were just missing shots in that game? Because it definitely was a little bit of both.
Definitely a little bit of both. And when we're talking about the defense on the Thunder, we can't talk about defense and not mention Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso has been phenomenal in this series. We saw in game 3 was TJ McConnell with 5 steals. What does Alex Caruso do on the other side? He says, "Well, you can do, TJ. I can do better." Comes out in game 4 and has 5 steals of his own. 20 points. He's had 3 20-point games, the first player in NBA history to have 0 20-point games in the regular season and then have multiple in the finals. It is crazy to see how much of an X factor Alex Caruso has been for his Oklahoma City team, and I expect him. I think it's just a battle between those two guys, and Caruso and Nemhard. Who's going to get the better of SGA and Halliburton? Because those are the two titans on the defensive end for these two teams. Outside of that, I'm looking at the double big. I feel like I've mentioned it a bunch in this series, but that has been such a crucial X factor throughout this series. Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. We saw game 4. Chet Holmgren had a double-double. I'm looking at Pascal Siakam to have a little bit of a bounce-back game tonight. He had a little quieter game, only 20 points in game 4. I expect him to have a bigger bounce-back game in game 5. And Miles Turner, stay out of foul trouble, man. Five fouls with 5 minutes left to go in the game. The second the Thunder saw that, they just started attacking him. And that is simple, little, easy mistakes that sometimes go unnoticed, but can be the difference in a series like this.
Yeah, and you bring up the other two stars of the Pacers in Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner, and they have both had not the greatest series so far. These are both guys that you look at and you expect more out of. Miles Turner especially. You talk about foul trouble, but also he just hasn't shot the ball well. He's made a lot of big impact plays defensively. Siakam is a guy that is kind of their go-to offensively. Tyrese Halliburton struggles to create his own shot. We've seen it a lot in this series. He struggles a lot, but he's great on that pick and roll action, getting open when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. But Siakam is a guy that you can just give him the ball and he can make a shot. He can find his spots. He hasn't really been doing that much in these finals. That's something that I think is waiting for the Pacers for them to take that next gear, that next step up. But that Thunder defense is swarming. It's hard, which is why they haven't been able to get there. Going back to OKC, it really is a tough environment. They were able to take game one over there. Game two did not go their way, but you also have to see they haven't lost back-to-back games all playoffs long. They haven't lost back-to-back games since March. It's been a long time for this team to have lost back-to-back games. So if there's any team out there that can deal with that Thunder crowd, that Thunder noise, and take them out of it, especially with an offensive run like that Pacers team can do, it is them. They have a real shot in this, which is why, getting back to where we were very early on in our conversation about this, why is everyone so certain that the Thunder are going to roll here by nearly 10 points too? That's the biggest spread that there's been in this series so far. It doesn't make any sense to me because there's always that counter punch. I just don't see I just don't see that big difference between these two teams. It feels like everyone is just doubting the Pacers again. How far off am I in your estimation?
I don't think you're far off at all. I think to start off, to explain a little bit of that reasoning, to play a little bit of devil's advocate for the betting sports books, I think a lot of people think that the last 5 minutes of that game four, the way that the Thunder were able to come together and come back and win this game, led by SGA, I think they're going to continue to build on that in game five, especially on their home court. They have the Pacers reeling a little bit. They're going to try and build off that and kind of explode off that momentum and take this game five. That's the only reason I can think of the spread being 10.5. I'm right there with you. I think that is a crazy spread. And if I'm not a betting fan personally, but if there's anybody that is, take the spread against. That's my humble opinion. Just take the plus 10.5. You're making easy money. But outside of that, I think tonight is going to be a very close game. I would not be shocked if we're going into the fourth quarter in a 3-4 point game, because I think the Pacers are going to stick right with them tonight. I think the Pacers it's going to be similar to game one, not with the deficit that the Pacers were in game one, but I think it's going to be the same feel with the Pacers just hanging around, keeping right up with the Thunder within 5 to 7 points, and then it sparks within the last 5 minutes, and we're looking at a back and forth game going SGA and Tyrese Halliburton going shot for shot late in this game. I think Tyrese Halliburton's going to have a big game in this one. He's had a little bit of a quiet last couple games. I know he had a good game 3, but game 4 he only had 18 points with 7 assists. I expect him to have a little bit of a bounce back game. And I think it's going to be a very close game. Whoever can shoot better in the clutch, whoever can play better defense in the clutch moments of this game is going to come out with the win. I don't think that's just my take on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It has come down to the clutch a lot in this series. I'm sticking with the Thunder, though. I know that we talked about all these stats for it. Not gambling advice, of course, here. Never gambling advice from us. So take everything we say with just a little bit of a hint, a grain of salt there. But I'm rolling with the Thunder in this one. I think that home crowd, that home atmosphere is just going to be way too much for that Pacers team to deal with. I do think they're going to have some kind of counterpunch. I think they're going to make those adjustments, put a lot of pressure on J-Dub, especially because he's someone that can turn the ball over a lot. He has some turnover issues when he's the primary ball handler. That's something that they can expose, especially early on. Maybe try to build a big lead, and as long as their shots are falling, if it goes the same way as Game 4, there's a real chance in Game 5 the Pacers can pull the upset. I'm sticking with the Thunder, though. Mehrob, what are your thoughts here? You've got the last word.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Jeremy. Expect a great game. Expect fireworks. Expect two teams that are going to go all out to win this game, because at the end of the day, 80% of the teams that win Game 5 end up winning the series. And this is an NBA Finals. This is between two teams that haven't sniffed this type of success in their entire careers. The last time the Pacers... never mind careers, the last time this franchise in the Indiana Pacers were in the finals was 25 years ago in 2000. So that arena is going to be rocking. These two teams are going to be ready to go. Rick Carlisle will have his team ready to go to have a bounce back game. Expect a very close game, and I'm rolling with the Thunder as well with a 2 to 3 point win. A very close game.
That's right. We both got the Thunder here. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, though. In the comments, who do you have in this game? who's your X factor in this one as well. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we continue to talk about basketball. The big news from yesterday, Desmond Bane on to a new team for a very steep price. We'll talk about that Orlando Magic Memphis Grizzlies trade, break down every single angle, what's next for the Grizzlies, what's next for the Magic as well, coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by Mehrob here. We have a lot to get into. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over previewing the NBA Finals. We both had the Thunder. Curious who you guys have in a pivotal Game 5, but more big basketball news broke over the weekend. Desmond Bane, the number 2 option over there with the Memphis Grizzlies, was traded to the Orlando Magic for 4 unprotected first-round picks, a 2029 pick swap, KCP, and Cole Anthony. A little bit of a steep price over there, but worth it if it can push the Magic into that next echelon of competition. Maybe they can find their way out of their East. We'll break that down in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful June 16th, Monday. What a day it is. Anyway, we've got a lot to get into here. Desmond Bane, the big move. I'm shocked a trade got announced before the NBA Finals are over. This is something that was kind of rumored with Kevin Durant. They had some stuff in the works here. Obviously, that's coming out to be more and more like a lie at this point. But the Magic are the first ones to strike on what is expected to be a crazy, crazy summer in the NBA. Desmond Bane, the first one to go. He goes for 4 unprotected firsts. That's the big one. KCP, a big contract that they might want to get off of there, but maybe he can still turn it around. Cole Anthony, and of course, that pick swap here. Before we get into the ramifications of all of this, Mehrob, just talk to me about this trade a little bit. Who wins right now? Because this is a wild way to kick off trade season in the NBA.
Definitely. If the NBA has a crazy dinner plan summer set up for us in free agency, they had to give us a major appetizer here. And this is what this was with the Desmond Bane trade. This is a number 2 option that I personally thought was going to be untouchable in Memphis. I was looking at the other 2 stars possibly being tradable and being major trade assets for this new Grizzlies coaching regime that's over there. They bring in the new coach this year, firing Taylor Jenkins mid-season. I always thought Desmond Bane was one of those guys that they were not going to get rid of. They were going to continue to build another strong unit with him as a supporting cast, as a great, reliable two-way player that Desmond Bane is. But it just shows what it took to get off of him. 4 first-round picks, Cole Anthony, KCP headed to Memphis. For Memphis, I love this move. It sets them up beautifully for the future. They have so many assets, not only tradable assets, but they have so much draft capital that they can use to bring in a new young core over there. So I love the move for the Grizzlies. But for the Magic side of things, while I do think they gave up a little too much, this now gives another star player for Paulo Banchero to work with, another shooter, another offensive threat that the Magic have desperately needed on this team. It was glaring for the last 2 seasons, bringing the Cavs to 7 games 2 years ago, bringing the Celtics to 6 games this year. Both times, every time this team was in close games, it just felt like they were one offensive piece away from winning both of those series. So I love this move. It takes pressure off of Franz Wagner to be a normal center, be a number 3 option. Takes pressure off of Paulo Banchero defensively in terms of defensive pressure. As a whole, I like the move for both of these teams. And if this is just the first trade for a crazy NBA summer, we are in for a wild, wild summer.
Yeah, you talk about especially the terms around Desmond Bane being traded, right? How you were shocked that he was the guy that was moved. To me, this feels like a move that the the Grizzlies weren't shopping Desmond Bane around, right? This is more the Magic come to the Grizzlies with an offer they can't refuse. This is an overpay, but it's an overpay that was a necessity. You talk about that now, I guess, 4-headed monster in Orlando of Bane, Banchero, Wagner, and Suggs. Coming off the bench, you've got Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, and Mo Wagner as well. Like, this is a deep team. It's an expensive team, but it's a deep team. You talk about an Eastern Conference that feels wide open, but with moves like this and what we're expecting from the rest of the Eastern Conference, the competitors in the East, the Cavs probably going to stay put, but I expect the Knicks to make a big move. The Celtics are out of it here. The Pacers are probably not going to make a big move, but they just won the East, so they're going to be a big threat over there. This automatically puts the Magic, who I think if they were healthy this season would have been a top 4 seed in the East anyway, into that conversation here. I love this move for them. I think the more interesting side of this conversation, because we understand why they made this trade. If you're Orlando, you add a guy that shoots 42%. You space the floor a little bit, which was by far their biggest issue. You keep that elite defense, which has been kind of that calling card of this new era of Magic basketball with a really solid defensive core. You get shooting. You get off of that KCP contract, which wasn't really aging too well just 1 year in. I like what they had. I like what they did. Again, I would have preferred to not give up too much, but that's just what happens when you go and get a guy like Desmond Bane. The Grizzlies are the one that I'm super fascinated by because they could go so many different ways with this, right? They could trade Ja or Triple J, right? All of those guys, they could be gone. They fired their head coach. They were an 8 seed last year. They seemingly weren't too close to a title. They could move off of everybody and hit the reset button. But they also, with the assets from this Bane trade, maybe make a move for a superstar like a Giannis or a KD to play next to Ja and Triple J. And that's a deep team over there. You have now big contracts like KCP that you can trade to match salary in stuff like this. There's a lot of ways they can go. If you are the Grizzlies, are you selling everything and starting fresh, or are you just making one final push with this core and seeing what is out there in the trade market?
As much as I want to say they want to give it one more shot with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., these are 2 guys that I'm very fond of. I think they're 2 guys that are incredibly underrated in the Western Conference. I just think the front office, first of all, let's take Jaren Jackson Jr. out of the picture. I think front office is kind of a little bit I don't want to use the term annoyed, but just disappointed with Ja Morant and his production. The number 2 overall pick back in 2018, I believe, or 2017, back in the day. A guy that a lot of people had a lot of high hopes on coming out of Murray State, and if we're looking back on it, he hasn't made a Western Conference final. He hasn't. This team is consistently in the top 3 of the Western Conference. Just before they fired Taylor Jenkins, they were once again this year in the number 2 seed. And what have they done? They lose to Steph Curry in 2022. That's probably their best playoff highlight. They lose to the Lakers in 2023 in the first round. This is just a team that's consistently just fallen back, just hasn't lived up to the expectations, hasn't grown. It hasn't, at least like when you're talking about growing with young players, with a young core, playoff success is so important. And when you don't have that, it just stifles at some point or another, it just puts pressure on the front office. And eventually that bubble explodes. With Desmond Bane, I'm right there with you. I don't think they wanted to get rid of Desmond Bane. But with Ja Morant, I think they are ready to shop Ja Morant. There've already been some rumors about that. I think they take this new young draft capital and they build a new young core there. I think it would just make sense for the new coach as well. Bring in a new coach, bring in a bunch of new guys, a new team, and then just build the team up, see what can happen with this new team.
Yeah, Ja Morant is a super interesting case too, because he's a guy that undeniably, if you get him on the court, is an elite player, right? With his athleticism over there, what he's able to do with the basketball, it is insane. His hops are just like nothing else I've ever seen. I feel like he could jump over the moon if you gave him enough runway, right? This is a guy that is just so much fun to watch, but he's also a guy that has had some injury histories. And when you're talking about a guy that's so explosive and athletic, that is especially scary when you're talking about Ja Morant. It's not just that, though. It's the off-the-court issues as well, that he can't seem to quite kick. He's having trouble staying on the court for both injuries and suspension reasons. So because of that, the market is a little bit muddled on Ja Morant. There's plenty of teams that I think would love to have a guy like Ja Morant, but I don't know how many contenders are really going to be lining up to get Ja, a guy that maybe doesn't fit the best in so many teams. He's a very much a ball dependent guy. He needs the ball in his hands. But he's a special athlete. What kind of places does a Ja Morant fit into? Is it just these tanking teams? Because I think he'd be a fun watch on like the Wizards, for instance, but I don't think he wants to go play for the Wizards, right? I don't think he would have a lot of fun over there in DC. Where are some good fits for a guy like Ja Morant?
I think one that, just not giving this too much thought, the first team that comes to mind are the Phoenix Suns, especially what they get back in this deal. If this deal goes through, whoever they deal Kevin Durant to, they will get assets from, whether it's the Knicks, they get Karl-Anthony Towns, whether it's the Timberwolves, they can get a bunch of assets there, a bunch of young pieces. Whatever they get back, they will still have a team. They still have Devin Booker. If you can add Ja Morant to that team, I think that would not only be another box office team to watch, it would be an interesting team to see how they could get how much success they could have, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs as well. That's just one team that comes to mind. You could talk about the Heat if you would like. There's not that many point guard heavy needing teams. That's the biggest thing that I'm noticing. There's a lot of great point guards in the NBA right now, and there's not that many teams that need a good point guard. So I think that's what waters down the search a lot for these teams. I think Phoenix is the number one option that I can think of off the top of my head.
I think Triple J, I think he's a guy that's a little bit more widely available, right? I think any team would be ecstatic to have a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr. over there. He is not only an elite defender, constantly in that depoy conversations, but he's a guy that is at a position of need. You talk about a wing that can play like a stretch 4, can even slide down to the 5 if you really need a guy down there with his defensive acumen. It's a really interesting kind of prospect there. And you talk about some of these big names out there. You have a Giannis, you have a KD, and it doesn't make sense to trade away these guys if you are going to hold on, trade for those guys if you're going to trade away your other two stars. But it feels like Memphis is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now, where they move off of these two guys. It's just going to be a disaster season, and sometimes you just have to be fine with that. They also have drafted really well. They have a really deep team. You talk about one of the best drafts last year, getting a lot of good value. Zach Edey stepped up. Sandy Aldama stepped up over there for them. This is a Grizzlies team that I think, they were good. They were a 2 seed for a long time. Then they fired their coach. A lot of things went wrong for that team. But Triple J is an asset that if I'm a contending team, I'm going to give up so much for that combination of defense and offense right there, and his just ability to play 3 positions on the floor is huge. How much do you think you could get for a guy like Triple J, and is it kind of just time for them to move on?
As much as this kind of hurts to say, JJJ just might be one of those guys that you can only get like a first and a second round pick for. He's not one of those guys that you can get you might be able to get a guy like a Cole Anthony, like a good, reliable bench piece, a solid player, a Mikal Bridges even. You can get a solid, good player, but you can't get one of the top 25, one of the greats of the NBA right now. That's just unfortunate. You can't, with JJJ alone, you can't do it. If you added a guy like a Jalen Wells, like a Zach Edey, there's a bunch of young talent on the Memphis Grizzlies, so there are some packages that you can use to go out there and get another great piece. It's just going to need to be a package. It would not be a single piece. It would not be JJJ by himself. If you just wanted to trade him, I think the best deal you could get would be a first and a second round pick, or a couple second round picks in return for him, unfortunately.
See, that's interesting to me because you see a guy like Desmond Bane go for 4 firsts. You see a guy like Mikal Bridges, who kind of is the guard version of Triple J, maybe. Maybe that's a little bit too far for me to go there. Go for 5 firsts. And you look at just the economy of picks in the NBA, with especially how limited every single team is this year other than the Nets in cap space. I think you could fetch a pretty high price for a guy like JJJ, and it would probably come with some kind of package because, you're not going to go out and get a lot of... If you're trading him away, you're not trying to compete. You're not trading for a top 25 player, but I think you could probably get at least 2 first-round picks, maybe even 3, depending on how desperate of a trade partner you're able to find. You go and you look for a team that is desperate for defense to add some length to their team. I think you could absolutely get a good amount for Triple J there. But this Magic trade, I still think is big for them. Finding our way back to Orlando here, you talk about a team in the East that, with this trade, like we were saying earlier on, cements themselves as at least a top half of the Eastern Conference, right? A team that will be, knock on wood, everything stays healthy for them, a top 4 seed in the East next year, competing with the Pacers and the Knicks and the Cavs. How much of a title threat does adding Desmond Bane to that Orlando squad make them?
I think that's the perfect sweet spot that you put him right there at that 4 spot. That's exactly what I said when I was reacting with my other good friend and co-host here on the GSMC Sports Network, Jake Daley. That's exactly what we said. I'd put him right at 4 behind the Knicks, Cavs, and Pacers. You could probably muddle in the Celtics if you'd like, but not this year. It would be 2 years from now for certain. But when I'm looking at this Magic team, I think they're definitely in contention for the Eastern Conference. I think it's going to be an interesting Eastern Conference. It might not be as loaded as you think, but it's going to be very competitive. And there's a bunch of young teams in here that are going to be that are going to be shopping and going to be competing for some experience to represent the Eastern Conference. I think the Orlando Magic are right there with them. I think in terms of a team that I think they could knock off, I think they could easily knock off the Indiana Pacers based on their defense alone. The Pacers are big time about pace, space, playing with speed. I think a strong defense would really, really give them a hard time. As much as I think the Thunder have a great defense, they also play with a lot of speed and they utilize SGA and that offense so much that their defense sometimes gets forgotten about. When you have a team like the Orlando Magic that their defense is the main focal point, I think that's a team that could give the Pacers a lot of trouble. But I think that's just my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. I was really high on the Magic this year. I thought they were going to finish as the 3 seed in the East, honestly. They end up being the 8. Again, a lot of that can be pointed to injuries on this squad, but you add Desmond Bane to that. I'm still incredibly high on them. I think they're a team that has a real chance to win the East. I think they match up really well with the Cavs. We saw them take care of business against the Cavs a whole lot in the regular season, breaking down a lot of their historic win streaks that they were on this season. The Magic were a thorn in their side for them. And honestly, I thought if they matched up with them in the first round, they might have been able to eliminate them. That's going back and changing history, though. I do like this trade for both sides. I think the Magic win in the short term, at least right now. Just looking at everything right now, the Magic are the winners in my eyes, but the Grizzlies have a lot of options. They can their next move is going to be the most crucial in deciding how this trade goes down in as far as legacy wise. I'm super curious how it's going to be because the Grizzlies, they are not done making moves this offseason. And I can't wait to see what's coming next for them. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we shift our attention over to the world of baseball. It's trade season, not just in the NBA, but also in the MLB. A Luka Doncic-esque trade took place yesterday between the Boston Red Sox and the San Francisco Giants. Excuse me, getting my sports mixed up here. We'll talk about the Rafael Devers shocking move and trade coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, joined by Mehrob here. We have, if you're just tuning in, gone over all of the biggest news from around the NBA. Game 5 of the finals officially underway here in Oklahoma City. We talked about the Desmond Bane trade that took place yesterday as well. It's still trading season, though. The MLB trade deadline a couple months away, but that has not stopped one of the most shocking moves in recent baseball memory from taking place, as the Boston Red Sox have traded away their best player and franchise cornerstone, Rafael Devers, to the San Francisco to the San Francisco Giants for nothing, really, for 36 cents and some pocket lint. It is ridiculous what has taken place here. It is baseball heresy. I'm just going to start off right here. Mehrob, as a Boston fan, what is this? What is going on right now? It is ridiculous. These decisions, head-scratching decision making after decision. They just swept the Yankees. They were above 500 for the first time in forever. Everything was going well, and then this bomb drops. What is going on in Boston?
We're seeing nightmares of 2021. That's what's happening in Boston. We've seen this movie before. That's what's happening in Boston. There was a guy by the name of Mookie Betts who brought us to who won us a World Series, who was renowned as one of the best players in the MLB, that the Boston Red Sox decided to trade away at, honestly, in a similar fashion as this. That's why, if you guys saw me yesterday here on the show, I was the way I was. I was very much going through the emotions of it, very much going through all of the thought, everything that happened, all the flashbacks of 2021 came back. But this time it's by the name of Rafi Devers instead of Mookie Betts. This trade is just shocking, was shocking. We saw you bring up that they just swept the New York Yankees. Fun fact, Rafi had a home run in this game yesterday. And 4 hours later, 4 hours removed, the Boston Red Sox decide to trade him away. And it's crazy. It is beyond crazy. But that's the world of sports now. It just is what it is. When we're looking at this trade, the Giants look phenomenal. The Giants absolutely won this trade. And I think this puts them in the World Series conversation, in the top 3 echelons of the NL, with the New York Mets and the LA Market Dodgers. I think those two teams, it puts them right in the conversation with them to win the NL. I think for the Red Sox side of things, we just saw, we were joking about this earlier in the show. We saw Craig Breslow, the GM of the Red Sox, put out a quote earlier today talking about that the Red Sox might end up winning more games than that might have been originally thought after this trade. I know what Jeremy's going to say, so I'm going to leave him to react to that one, but it's crazy to even think about that a GM of a team would think about saying something like that. It is shades of Nico Harris in Dallas. That is what it is. It truly is shades of Nico Harris. So put all of this together, we are looking at the Boston Red Sox, who was a team that was going to compete, who could possibly compete for the AL pennant, who could compete with the New York Yankees, had beaten them 5 out of 6 times already this year. Give up their trade piece, give up the cornerstone of their team, and we're looking at who knows what the Red Sox could look like 2 months from now. But I'm going to leave it on that note and hand the baton over to my good friend Jeremy Lapidus.
Yeah, before we get into the return for this, let's just break down this saga, because a saga is what it is. All of this kind of feels more petty than anything else, to me at least. We're going to break down where this all starts. It starts at the beginning of the season, the off-season. The third baseman for the Red Sox was Rafael Devers. Devers wanted to be the third baseman. He signed that 11-year, $330 million contract extension 2 years ago, with the expectation that he would be the long-term third base option. Now, I will say, I did not hate the signing of Alex Bregman. In fact, I really liked the signing of Alex Bregman because Rafael Devers, to put it bluntly, is not a good third baseman. He was the worst qualified third baseman out of every single third baseman defensively in the field. But what makes him worth it is his bat. He is one of the top 10 hitters in the entirety of the MLB. And it's not really even that close. He's absolutely in that discussion, and hitting is more valuable than defense when it comes to baseball. The hot corner, he just was not meant to play that. Devers was not happy, of course, when they signed Alex Bregman, which is understandable on both sides as well. I can understand where both sides are coming from. He was asked by the media if he would switch to DH, and he simply said no. Like, it was a flat-out no was his answer. They were able to smooth it out. He's moved to DH. He's having the best hitting season of his entire career. He's going to break his OPS plus record that he's on pace to just have his best season ever from behind the plate. He's racked up almost 2.5 WAR already as a DH. And if you know what that WAR stat is, a lot of it has to come with defense. It is incredibly hard for a DH to rack up a great WAR season. He's almost at 2.5, and we're not even halfway through the season right now. He struggled out of the gates, but he's really turned it on down the stretch here. More fuel was added to the fire to this when first baseman Trenton Casas went down. He went down with injury, and the media asked if Devers would be at all interested in moving to first base, just to fill a hole in the meantime, right? Understandably, again, Devers went off, right? He was not happy with this. He reiterated when he signed that 11-year contract just 2 years ago, he signed it with the understanding that he would be the long-term third baseman for the Boston Red Sox. He is not going to move. He said, I'm a DH. They made me a DH. I'm only a DH. He kind of took a shot at the GM, at the ownership, and that's where I think a lot of this come from. Mehrob, you brought up, of course, Mookie Betts. He was traded away after they won a World Series in 2018. They say, oh, but he's going to be a depreciating asset. He has been a first-team all-MLB guy for the last 5 seasons, won 2 World Series over there. That was amidst a contract dispute. They've just, in general, shown a lack of willingness to pay or hold on to their star players over the course of the last 10 years or so, right? This is just a failure as an organization. Another kind of piece to throw into the puzzle here that I haven't seen too many people talking about. The owners of the Boston Red Sox, Fenway Sports Group, also owns Liverpool. And they just made some very expensive moves in the transfer portal over there. They paid a lot of money to get a couple of players. They're trying to save money here. That's what this trade was. They saved $250 million. All of that money is going to the Giants' books now. That's something that the Red Sox fan, I think, need to pay attention to here. There is just a lot going on in this situation that is above baseball, across the pond even, and is not even a part of what's going on in the field here. It is a mess, all of it. And we haven't even gotten into the return yet, but there's just so much going on with this Red Sox team. They're a big market team. They should not be having to do this. It just really pisses me off because this is a Red Sox team that could have been so good right now. Ugh, it's just a mess over there. I hate it so much.
Yep. And I'm just happy that you said this situation because you said it much calmer than I would have. So I'm happy that I gave that baton to you on that one. But going into the return of it, if we're going to talk about what we got for Rafi Devers, yes, the Red Sox absolutely got a bag of chips, pocket change, 36 cents, whatever you want to call it. This is a team that they bring in a guy like Jordan Hicks, a relieving pitcher with a 6.5 ERA this year. A guy that's been bouncing around the league for the last few years, had a good streak with the Toronto Blue Jays for a little while, but the Giants bring him in, and it has been nothing short of a train wreck for a relieving pitcher so far. Is that going to change? We'll see how that happens. But from there, we have a guy by the name of Kyle Harrison, who's a similar boat, has a little bit of better ERAs, younger, has more upside to him, can be a startable piece, but is not there yet. And then you have 2 minor league guys that who knows what we're going to see out of them, but this is obviously in the Red Sox farming system. They have a good farming system. They just brought in 2 of the top premier. I can't think of the word for it. Think of the terminology. It's going right over my head. You know what I'm talking about, Jeremy? Please. Thank you.
2 of the top prospects here in baseball were just called up there. 2 of the top 5 guys. This is a team that has a solid prospect field. You talk about the guys that came over here, right? You bring up you bring up Jordan Hicks, right? He was a failed starting pitcher, nearly 7 ERA. The big piece of this puzzle for me, Kyle Harrison, just got sent down to AAA immediately. He was slated to start against the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball. And then they got 2 prospects outside of the top 100. Their number 4 prospect from the Giants farm system was their first-round pick last year out of Florida State, and he's got a little bit of pop. He's someone that can come in and have some power here. And then you've got a pitcher that's still in developmental ball. He just came over to the States. These guys are young. Kyle Harrison is 20. These other guys are even younger. They're in high A and developmental leagues right now, right? They're not ready to come up. Devers at 28 years old is still in his prime. It is just a bad trade, no matter how you look at it, from the sense of the Red Sox. Now, the Giants, they're taking on the full salary of Rafael Devers, and that's not a little amount of money, right? That is a good amount of money you're taking. $250 million over the next 9 seasons is all fully guaranteed in baseball. New GM Buster Posey over there having a nice start to his career off of the playing field in the Bay Area. But this is a Giants team that right now is just 1 game back of the Dodgers in the NL West, right? You add one of the best hitters in the game, and we did a real or fake on the Giants on Friday. This completely changes my mind on them. I thought they could be a wild card team. This is a huge step up. You have Matt Chapman coming back to play third base. This is a Giants team that isn't even fully healthy. He's going to play DH. He should play DH. That's where he belongs, because he's not a third baseman with the way that he plays the field. But this makes the Giants real contenders. It really does. I'm a huge fan of this trade for the San Francisco Giants, and I think with the way they're playing, the way that the pitchers are going right now for them, they have a shot to potentially beat the Dodgers in that NL West, that incredibly crowded NL West.
Most definitely. The NL West is going to be, if it wasn't already crowded, if it wasn't already the best division in baseball, you might as well just throw away the rest of the NL outside of the Mets and just give the NL West the entire conference spotlight. This is a conference that's filled with 3 teams right now: the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Padres. As much as you want to say the Padres hitting has been a little bit quiet recently, their fielding, their pitching, their bullpen is the reason why they are still good as they are. They're still one of those top teams in the NL, and they're still in the midst of all of this. But with this move, the Giants already have one of the best bullpens in the league. They have the I think they have the third least runs given up in a season so far, or second, with 3.27, right behind the New York Mets. But when we're looking at this right now, this is a Giants team that already has a great bullpen. They're hitting. You brought up Matt Chapman. They're not even fully healthy with their best hitters, and they add a Rafael Devers, who's just a home run machine, a hitting monster. You brought up the WAR stat. He's one of the best hitters he's having one of the best hitting seasons of his career, and easily one of the top 25 players in the MLB right now. You're adding that guy to this already loaded San Francisco Giant team. This is a team that's going to be around for the next few years. In terms of salary and GMing and cap space, that is going to be a little bit of an issue. But in the immediate future, this is a San Francisco Giants team that is going to contend for the next 2 to 3 years for sure, no doubt.
Yeah, you talk about this Giants team. They haven't made the playoffs in over 5 years at this point. It's been a long time since they were last in this realm of even discussion. Now, they were off to a very hot start, and this is absolutely going to help, but they need to finish strong. They need to continue to push here after making this trade for Rafael Devers. I think they can do it with the way that they're playing. It's going to be quite the finish in the NL West. But we're not done with the NL West here, because some more massive news out of the NL West here today. Shohei Ohtani returns to the mound for the first time in nearly 2 years. We'll talk about that and much more coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by my friend and co-host, Mehrob here. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over some of the biggest stories in sports. It is open trade season all around America here. We saw the MLB bust open with a Luka Doncic-esque trade out of nowhere in the middle of the day. Rafael Devers on Father's Day moved to the Giants. We saw a massive trade in the NBA. Desmond Bane now making the Magic potential contenders in the East. We also saw the NBA Finals start up here, Game 5. In this segment, we're sticking with baseball, though. Another big story out of the NL West, Shohei Ohtani, a favorite to win MVP for the second straight year with the Dodgers right now, is back on the mound tonight for the first time since August of 2023. We'll talk about that in just a second, but before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Monday, June 16th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into here what's going on over on the West Coast. Shohei Ohtani, the most unique athlete in American sports right now, maybe outside of one Travis Hunter down in Jacksonville, is officially back on the mound tonight. He has not pitched since a game against the Reds when he was a Los Angeles of Anaheim Angel back in 2023, August 23rd of 2023 to be specific, against the Reds. He will pitch as an opener tonight against the San Diego Padres. His most recent bullpen outing, a simulated game, he threw 44 pitches. Now, we don't know what kind of pitch count is going to be put on Shohei Ohtani, but we do know this is much needed reinforcement for a Dodgers team that has just been ravaged yet again by pitcher injuries. 14 pitchers for the Dodgers currently on the IL, leading to a lot of Kike Hernandez innings over there. Not the way that you want to go, although it's always fun to see a position player go out and pitch. If you're a team like the Dodgers, who was supposed to have a nice, comfortable lead down to just one game, getting a guy like Shohei Ohtani back on the mound is huge. I know a week ago or so, we talked about when Shohei Ohtani was coming back on the mound, what it would mean for the Dodgers. It has been a crazy week in sports since then. He is officially back. What does this mean for the Dodgers?
Well, it means less Kike Hernandez, at least, at the mound. This is a much needed addition for the Dodgers. And as much as I came on here yesterday, me and Jake are actually talking about this before the news even broke. As much as I was a little bit worried that this might be a little bit of a rushed comeback for Shohei Ohtani coming back from his Tommy John injury. It just feels like this is needed for the Dodgers. This is much needed timing, and it couldn't come at it could not come at a more needed time for a Dodgers team that's been ravaged with injuries, having position players come out and play on the mound. You bring in a guy like Shohei Ohtani. He hasn't pitched in almost 2 years, but you bring in him. He's definitely going to be on a pitch count tonight, but it's going to be interesting to see how he performs. How he's going to be, if he's going to be rusty. Are we going to see a little bit of Chris Sale-esque out of him when he came back from his injury? Is he going to struggle a little bit? Is he going to come out hot? It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out, but this is a confident Dodgers staff. As much as they are injury ravaged, they have been putting him in multiple simulated games, and you just mentioned he had 44 pitches in his last one. We'll see how this all shakes out. We could see probably between I would say at least 50 pitches tonight out of Shohei Ohtani, unless he has a really bad outing. If he comes out there and just really looks rusty, does not look like himself, I would not be shocked if they pull him early. But if we see normal show at least average to normal Shohei Ohtani, I expect him to pitch around 50 pitches a game tonight.
Yeah, you talk about normal Shohei Ohtani, a guy that has a career ERA sitting around 3. You talk about a guy that strikes out more than one batter per inning. He is an insane athlete. He's been itching to get back on the mound. That's kind of been the story, or at least the noise coming out of Dodgers Park and that Dodgers team ever since he signed there. We knew he wasn't going to pitch in 2024. In 2025, we've heard competing stories, right? He wasn't supposed to come back until after the All-Star break. It is, I think, a little bit rushed due to the situation with the pitchers being on the IL, which is why I think he wanted to come back and pitch a full game. But just as an opener here, it's going to be really cool to see. We're going to see that Shohei Ohtani rule back in effect for the first time since he was with the Angels. The lineup rule, it's also huge for the Dodgers because they get that pitcher without having to send down one of their players. He's 2-1. It is a massive, massive get for the Dodgers to have that. I don't know how far he's going to go tonight. Maybe one time through the lineup, depending on how well he does. It's not like he's starting off with the Rockies. He's starting off against a rival in the San Diego Padres, a very solid Padres team, dangerous top to bottom in that lineup. It's not going to be an easy outing by any stretch of the imagination. I'm really excited to see what he does tonight. He was sitting back when he was healthy around 100 miles an hour with his fastball. That's going to be the most important thing to watch. What's his velocity at after a couple of shoulder injuries to him? We've seen guys come back from Tommy John surgery. Obviously, that's an elbow injury. It's a little bit different, and their velocity has kind of been sapped from them. A big example of that right now, Spencer Strider over there with the Braves, who had one of the best fastballs in baseball. Dropped a couple miles an hour, has not quite been the same this season. Shohei Ohtani's velocity is going to be something to watch. And I don't think they'd trot him out there, especially a guy who, like I said, is the favorite to win MVP right now in the NL. I don't think they'd trot him out there unless he truly was ready. But this does feel like a bit of a risk, because if he comes out and his pitching isn't where you expect it to be at this point, it's not going to be good for his MVP case, just, when it comes to individuality stuff. I bet he'll be fine. I'm super excited for it tonight. It's going to be must-watch television over there. But as far as the rest of the Dodgers go so far, because this hasn't quite been the season that they imagined, right? This can be the start, if it goes well, of a new momentum shift for them. We talk about the injuries that are there, but getting a guy like Shohei, if his energy is back, like if he's happy in that clubhouse, it is just a different energy around that team. Hard not to be happy when you're winning a lot of games, but getting back out there on the mound, which I feel like is his favorite part of the sport, despite him being the second best hitter in all of baseball right now, only behind Aaron Judge. Hitting nearly 300 right now is crazy with all that rehab that he's done on his arm. It's going to be special tonight. The Dodger crowd I bet he's going to get a standing ovation when he steps up on the mound. It's going to be super cool. This is also his Dodger debut. Last time he pitched, he was wearing an Angels uniform. So it's not just that he's coming back for the first time in 2 years. This is the first time he's going to throw a pitch in a Dodger uniform. They're at Dodger Stadium. It's going to be a movie over there tonight. I cannot wait to see it. But we're going to take a quick break.
I was just going to say, tip up. First pitch for that game is going to be at 10 o'clock on the West Coast. So I can't wait to start watching it when we're done here. It's going to be a phenomenal game.
Right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention back to basketball here. We've talked a lot about trades here, but Kevin Durant had some more news coming out about him. He picked a couple of preferred teams. Heat, Spurs, and Rockets are the team he picked. There's a couple teams out there that seem to be taking a lot more initiative on him. 3 teams over there. We'll talk about where he might end up and much more coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, joined by my friend and co-host, Mehrob here. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the news that Shohei Ohtani back on the mound for the first time in nearly 2 full years. In this segment, we turn our attention back to the world of basketball. First quarter over in the finals, by the way. The Thunder with a 10-point lead, 32-22 at home over the Indiana Pacers. But Kevin Durant, a name that has been a huge trade rumor name for the last couple of weeks, last month or so, his search has kind of been brought down to 3 teams. 3 teams that he prefers, 3 teams that are kind of in on his trade situation. We'll talk about his fit on each one coming up in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Monday, June 16th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into everything you need to know about Kevin Durant, a saga that's kind of been changing a lot. There were 5 teams when we talked about it last week. Kevin Durant put out his 3 preferred destinations. Those 3 preferred destinations being the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, or the Houston Rockets. Now, in a perfect world, he ends up over there. He's happy. He signs an extension. He is an expiring contract, though, which makes other teams not done with the idea of trading for him. And that one other team, specifically the Minnesota Timberwolves. Teams, according to sources in deep conversations, still in deep trade talks with the Phoenix Suns, seem to be the Miami Heat, the Houston Rockets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, they're a really interesting team, and we're going to start off with them in this discussion here because we've had some really interesting talks about it. Rudy Gobert potentially on the move there in that situation. You're most likely going to have to get the Brooklyn Nets involved in a deal here to make it work for both sides. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than a two-team trade with the Heat or the Rockets. But Kevin Durant has also said that he does not want to play in Minnesota. Now, I don't think that's because of Anthony Edwards. I don't think that's because of anything other than not wanting to live in Minnesota, right? That doesn't sound like a great time living in Minnesota. I've been up to Minneapolis, beautiful city. They've got these nice indoor walkways so you can avoid the cold, but you can only avoid the cold so much when you're living up there in Minnesota. I also don't love the fit over there when it comes to the Timberwolves, Mehrob. This is just a weird one with Anthony Edwards between them. What do you see with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Kevin Durant? Is it going to work out if they find a way to make this happen? And do you think he holds out at all? Is that a possibility for one season if he gets traded there?
Talking about KD personally, I would not be shocked if we saw him if he held out a little bit. But me personally, I'm actually going to flip the other way. I'm going to say he's my favorite spot. The Minnesota Timberwolves are my favorite spot for Kevin Durant to play next. If there was a place that I could see him thriving and having the most playoff success in, it would be Minnesota. Playing alongside Anthony Edwards, playing with Jaden McDaniels. We saw Julius Randle have a little bit of a resurgence this year in the playoffs. If you add Kevin Durant to a team that was kind of missing that secondary option, kind of similar to the Orlando Magic, definitely a much better, well-rounded team than the Orlando Magic, but a team that was also just missing another offensive threat, another guy that could kind of take some of the pressure off of Anthony Edwards. I think who else could you ask better than Kevin Durant? The problem is Kevin Durant is going to want to be a primary option on the team. Kevin Durant is going to be wanting the ball in his hand more often. And it would be a little bit of two bulls locking horns with him and Anthony Edwards. The thing is, Kevin Durant would have to understand that this is the similar situation to him in Golden State, where it was Steph Curry's team. He would have to play off of Steph Curry. He's going to need to play off of Anthony Edwards if he went to Minnesota. But if he's able to do that, I could see the Minnesota Timberwolves being one of the top premier threats, and honestly would be my choice to win the Western Conference next year.
The one thing, and I agree with just about everything that you said there, the one thing is the difference in play style between Anthony Edwards and Steph Curry, I think, is something that's just going to make it a little bit tough, right? We talk about Steph as the greatest shooter of all time. We talk about him as a guy with incredible basketball IQ. But one of the things that I think, it doesn't slide under the radar, but compared to a lot of things that we talk about Steph with, is his off-ball movement, right? When you talk to people about defending Steph Curry, people that have defended Steph Curry, they say he doesn't stop. He does not stop moving. He goes everywhere. You have to run a marathon to cover Steph Curry. And that's because he's so good off of the ball. Anthony Edwards, while he's not a scrub off of the ball by any means, he is not that same level of player. In Golden State, we were able to see Kevin Durant, despite being option number 2, still be kind of ball dominant with that team, right? You had Steph Curry bringing out that offense. It kind of ran through Draymond Green anyway, so it didn't really run through either of them. But it kind of worked a little bit better with both of those play styles. I think it clashes a little bit. We see it with the Olympic team early on, and Anthony Edwards was on that second unit, not playing with Kevin Durant, despite, being on that same team. They just have very similar styles of play. I don't know how well it would work out. Now, on paper, this makes them the best team in the West. They've made the Western Conference Finals now 2 seasons in a row. They've been this close to a finals berth, but everything has to go wrong in Minnesota sports at the last second, and it's happened now 2 years in a row. as much as I like it on paper, and Anthony Edwards has talked about how he idolizes Kevin Durant, how that's his guy, his favorite player growing up, as cool as that would be to see those two play a year together, I think the combination of those two clashing play styles and just Kevin Durant's not wanting to play in Minnesota makes it a little bit hard. Like, if he was fine with playing in Minnesota, I think they could make it work. But I just feel like he'd be miserable up there the whole time. And if you're miserable, you're not going to try and make it work. You're just going to look towards the future, which is why teams like the Miami Heat are so interesting to me, and the Houston Rockets, these teams that are very interested in making a trade, are so interesting to me. I'm going to start with the Miami Heat on this one because they have an interesting trade package that we went over. The Suns, they want a center. Khalil Ware is that center that I feel like could be thrown in there, but the Heat don't want to get rid of him for obvious reasons. He's he's a great up and coming star, but then you also want to hold on to Bam. Is it one or the other? What is it going to take for the Heat or the Rockets to get a guy like Kevin Durant in the building, and what's the fit look like between either of those two teams?
We'll start with the Heat side of things. For the Heat, they're going to need to give up Khalil Ware. This is a guy that was up there for Rookie of the Year this year, one of the up-and-coming prospects. He had a little bit of a slow start to the year, but by the tail end, he was playing with Bam Adebayo in the starting lineup, and it was work. They were thriving together over there. So I don't think the Heat want to move off of him. I think he's a young star center, 6'9", almost 250 pounds, a big guy, has some weight to him, has some muscle, has some girth, can get rebounds, can defend well. Kind of similar to, I wouldn't say he can't shoot the way Karl-Anthony Towns can, but in terms of the shape, in terms of the weight, the play style, he's very much like Karl-Anthony Towns in terms of build. I just don't think the Heat gonna want to get rid of him, so they're gonna need to give up one of the two, either him or Bam Adebayo. I think they would more likely want to get rid of Ware. That's what kind of shakes me away from Miami, because I just don't think they're gonna want to get rid of either two guys. With Houston, it's a similar situation, and I know what you're gonna say after I say it, so just get ready. If the Houston Rockets are going to want to get KD, they're going to need to move Alperen Sengun. It's just going to have to happen. I love Alperen Sengun. His footwork, he's like Nikola Jokic, but bigger and can shoot better than Jokic. Can't pass, but the footwork, the way he's able to jump, the way he plays the game, he's polished. He's one of the top. He's a very unique player in Alperen Sengun. So I love him. He's one of the top, I'd say top 10 power forward in the game for sure. They would have to get rid of him. Outside of that, would you need to get rid of a guy like a Jalen Green? Maybe, probably. But hopefully if you had to get rid of one of the two, you would only need to get rid of you would only have to get rid of Sengun in that situation and throw in some draft capital. Throw in a Terry Eason or a Jabari Smith, so one of those two guys as well. I think Houston's more likely of the two. I just don't think it's just a center situation in both situations.
Yeah, it's tough because obviously they need a center after moving off of Ayton. They haven't really found a replacement. The Suns have, but Sengun, it's not a guy you can really move. I mean, he made the all-star team for them. They don't call him Baby Jokic for no reason, right? He's a guy that is going to be their big piece. And I think if you really are dead set on getting a guy like KD, if you're truly moving off of Sengun, I feel like that just closes your title window. And I know title windows are smaller than we want to think in the NBA. It's a very tough sport to go and win a title. I mean, we haven't seen a repeat champion in 8 years now, right? Whoever wins this championship is not going to be a repeat champion, obviously. It's tough to even get back to the NBA Finals with how much is changing and how hard you have to play to get there, how long you have to play to get there. But you can't give up Sengun. He fits, again, I hate that he fits the timeline argument. I really do. I think it's definitely a part of team building, but like that shouldn't be why you go out and make a move, because the ages match up. I think that's the mistake that a guy like Nico Harrison made, right? He fits the timeline better with the core of players that we have, right? That's not how you want to go out and build a team. You want to get the best players there. You for sure cannot get rid of Şengün and Jalen Green. That is one or the other. Those two guys cannot go together. That is just not a good way to build the team down there. I think they could get a deal done. You have a couple of backup centers, Jack Logdale over there with Houston. I mean, he's kind of a salary dump, and he's not a guy that you want to rely on as a main center. But if you can make it a 3-team trade, maybe get one of the centers out of Portland or something to go in and make this work, it could happen. It's going to be tough. It is. But I don't see the Rockets getting rid of Şengün.
No. And you bring up 3-team deals. A guy that's on the move, a team in Atlanta that's trying to move him, a guy by the name of Clint Capella is on the move. They could do a 3-team trade with the Atlanta Hawks. That's one of those guys that the Hawks are already looking to shop him. If they could throw them a couple a second round pick, a couple second round picks, I wouldn't be shocked if the Hawks accepted that deal and went ahead and made it a 3-team deal.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. You can find a third team partner, and I don't think this trade is going to be simple. It never is in the NBA with all of their rules around trades and keeping the pay the same and matching salaries, whatever. It's a whole big mess. But I mean, these are the 3 teams that are reported, right? The Heat, the Rockets, and the Timberwolves as the teams that are in there for Kevin Durant. There's also a lot of teams that are kind of on the outskirts, and we're seeing teams like the Timberwolves not care what Kevin Durant has to say. They want Kevin Durant in. Which of those outskirts teams, I mean, we heard about the Knicks, we heard about the Pistons, we heard about a lot of these teams that are like poking around, do you think have the best shot to go out and get a guy like Kevin Durant this offseason?
Yeah, there's teams like you said, the Knicks are a big name team that are looking for him. The San Antonio Spurs are involved. I'm going to say a team by the name of the Toronto Raptors are my favorite team to land him, possibly. A man by the name of Masai Ujiri, who's all over big name trades. He brought Kawhi Leonard to Toronto, taking him from San Antonio. He always has his fingerprints on massive blockbuster trades. And honestly, the Raptors have assets to give the Phoenix Suns if they would do that trade. Jakob Poeltl is a guy that they've been looking to move. RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley are 2 guys that they've already come out and said they're fine with moving. The number 9 overall pick is something that they've already come out publicly and said they're okay with moving. So there are pieces that they could move, that they could take and go after Kevin Durant to bring in with Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes. They've already been looking for big name players. This would be a perfect mold, I'd say. And it would probably get the ball in Kevin Durant's hands, let Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram build around him and continue to build that young nucleus over there in Toronto. It would be a phenomenal move to put Toronto back on the map as well in the Eastern Conference.
I love that Toronto idea. I really do. It's not one that I had heard before, but Jakob Poeltl, you bring him up. I have heard his names around trade rumors. There's your center right there. We've seen this team be willing to make moves before. You brought up a very similar situation with Kawhi Leonard. He did not want to play in Toronto. He made it clear he wanted to go play in California, play out west, and he ended up leaving, but they won a title that year, right? So it ended up working out. They were a Kawhi Leonard away. Now, I don't necessarily think this Raptors squad is a Kevin Durant away from winning anything, right? They missed the play-ins this year, and a lot of that had to do with injuries. They have a really intriguing core of guys that they just have not seen play together because of the injuries they dealt with last season. That's a really interesting team. I think if you're looking for a third team, they are absolutely one that's going to be in on this. I don't know if they're a team that eventually walks away with Kevin Durant, but there is a little bit back there that says the Toronto Raptors looking to make a big swing. I just feel like they don't, unless they can convince Kevin Durant to sign an extension, it doesn't make sense, which maybe they can. Toronto, very nice city over there. it's not even as cold as Minnesota. I don't think, honestly. I've only ever been there in the summer, but big sports town, big sports town. They've got everything that you need. They've got everything you need over there. So I absolutely love that one over there. I do love that idea. Kevin Durant, he's going to be in the news for a while. Giannis, we'll talk about him another time because he's also someone that is or maybe isn't moving. It's kind of changing a lot right now, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the world of hockey. In the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals, where we see the Florida Panthers take a 3-2 series lead, they do this thing like the NBA that I just don't love, where they announce the awards over the course of the playoffs, which, side tangent, kind of pisses me off. There's no grandiose to it, right? It's just oh, here's your MVP. Oh, this is the guy that won Rookie of the Year. Doesn't matter. It's just here. Goes to the back of the news cycle. I hate that. I hate that they do that. But we're going to go over all of them. We've compiled them here, and we'll talk about that next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, today joined by my friend and co-host, Mehrob here. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over everything you need to know about that Kevin Durant potential trade out of the Phoenix Suns. In this segment, we're going to finish up our show here talking a little bit about the Stanley Cup and the awards given out by the NHL. It, again, kind of talked about it at the end of the last segment, pisses me off the way that the NHL and the NBA do awards. There's nothing special about it. There's no ceremony. They just drop it in a random order at random dates. It's never consistent, but we've compiled all of them here. We'll talk about that in just a second. Before we do, though, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Monday, June 16th. But like I was saying, we're going to get into some awards here in the NHL. We're going to start off, of course, with the big ones. Start off with the MVP here and kind of combine it with the Vezina Trophy, the best goalie award. Lots of names here when it comes to trophies given out by the NHL. The Hart Trophy given to the most valuable player. It goes to Connor Hellebuyck, the goalie of the Winnipeg Jets. He also gets the Vezina. Now that is his second straight Vezina. That's the first time that anyone has gone back-to-back winning the Vezina, the best goalie award, since Martin Brodeur back in 2007 and 2008. It's his third Vezina of his career, moves him up to ninth all-time, a five-way tie for ninth all-time with 3 Vezinas. He was by far the best goalie, and according to everybody, the best player in the sport. He is just the 8th player ever and the first since Carey Price in 2014-2015 to get the Vezina and Hart combination. He had an incredible season, leading the Winnipeg Jets to their first ever President's Trophy Cup win, giving to the team with the best record the most points at the end of the regular season. He struggled in the playoffs yet again, which kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth, especially on the road, but he deserved this award. You don't see goalies win the MVP too often. There were a lot of guys giving him a little bit of a fight. What do you make of Connor Hellebuyck here, his season, and back-to-back, getting that Vezina-Hart combo and back-to-back winning the Vezina here?
Yeah, Connor Hellebuyck is cemented himself as one of the top 3 goaltenders in the league right now. Going back-to-back with the Vezina, it already puts him at 1 right now, but it puts him into the all-time conversation. Probably not all-time goalies, but as of recent memory, the only guy that really comes up to him in terms of his accolades success is a guy like a Carey Price, who won a bunch of awards in his own right. Obviously one of the top premier goalies of all time in Carey Price with the Canadiens back in the day. But when I'm looking at Connor Hellebuyck, he really carried that Winnipeg defense. As good as the offense was, that Winnipeg defense was really struggling, especially late in this season with some of those injuries. But it was Connor Hellebuyck that really saved them, especially going into the playoffs as well, going up against the Dallas Stars, extending that series as long as it went. Connor Hellebuyck was a big reason why the Jets had such good success. It was a big reason why they ended up with the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, and he's deserving of the MVP, no doubt. Number 2 and behind him for the Hart Trophy, Leon Draisaitl I did think got a little bit snubbed there just because of his performance this year. But when we're looking at the goalies, as much of an effect a good offensive player has, I think a goalie just can take over that sometimes, can take over the games, being such a wall lockdown defender in the net. Congrats to Connor Hellebuyck for that, and he cements himself as one of the best goalies in recent memory.
Yeah, you want to talk about an award that was really up for grabs this year. How about the Calder Trophy? The Rookie of the Year award went to defenseman Lane Hudson. Now, he is the first defenseman to win this award in a very, very long time. The defenseman of the Canadiens. He had to beat out a lot of great players, including Macklin Celebrini of the San Jose Sharks, Maitai Michkov of the Philadelphia Flyers. These 2 guys that are wingers, that are huge goal scorers for their teams. These guys who had incredible seasons in their own right. Lane Hudson was the winner of this award. He found his way to the top of a pretty solid defensive room in his rookie season, helped lead the Canadiens to their first playoff berth since they were led to the finals in that COVID season by Carey Price. This is a crazy race for the Calder Trophy, and one that I think was a lot closer than a lot of these other awards. He's going to have a long career over there, and they got a good one. It was a really solid rookie class this year. You don't see that all the time in hockey because of the way it works, kind of like baseball, where they get called up a little bit later, and you never really know with service time who's going to count as a rookie, who isn't. This was a tight race. Was this the right guy to give it to? Would you have given it to someone a little bit higher on the offensive end, as it usually goes to with awards? What do you think about Lane Hudson winning the Calder Trophy?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the beginning of the season, I think the 2 front runners were Celebrini and Michkov. Michkov having a phenomenal season with the Flyers. Obviously, Celebrini being Lane Hudson's teammate back at BU when they both got drafted from. I think this was a very tight race, and it was originally supposed to be a really tight race between the 2 wing guys. But what kind of brought Lane Hudson into the conversation was the Montreal Canadiens' run to making that playoff spot. They went on a crazy tear after the All-Star break, and it was a big reason why, and Lane Hudson was a big reason why they ended up doing that. His defense was incredible in the second half of the season, and then I think the playoff success, clinching that playoff berth, having no expectations on them, kind of coming out of the blue, the Montreal Canadiens kind of solidified that that's that trophy for him. Obviously, the Flyers and the San Jose Sharks not really making too much noise in the playoffs in the standings. The two guys being competitive, but in terms of playoff success, it really went down. It came down to that, in my opinion. It went to the Montreal Canadiens and Lade Hudson for that reason.
Yeah, a lot of times that is how the awards go. From one defenseman to another, Cale Makar wins the Norris Trophy for the best defenseman out there. He's the first defenseman to score 30 goals in a season since Washington Capitals legend Mike Green scored 30 in the 2008-2009 season. He has won now 2 of the last 4 Norris trophies. He is an incredible defenseman for the Colorado Avalanche over there, an offensive weapon, which you usually don't see out of defensemen, right? That 30-goal mark felt like it was never going to happen again once Mike Green kind of fell off a cliff there, but Cale Makar looks like he can do it again and again and again. Every once in a while, you get that rare defenseman that is just a sniper over there, kind of one of the main guys you run your power play through. He is incredible, maybe the best defenseman of this generation here. Talk to me a little bit about this Norris Trophy.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to talk about Cale Makar, it's hard for me, my alma mater being UMass Amherst, him bringing UMass a championship back in 2021. He was the leader of that team, and honestly, he's been nothing short of continuing to be that leader with the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, working with Mikko Rantanen before, having a great group of guys, winning a championship in 2022 with the Colorado Avalanche, and he's really just built on his career, taking that experience, going from the NCAA championship to the Stanley Cup, and now winning the Norris Trophy this year. He's a phenomenal player. His defense is incredible. His offense can match up with his defensive intensity. And when you have a guy that can play both sides of the ice like that, they're not only rare, they're once in a generation, like you brought up. This is a guy in Cale Makar that is incredibly valuable to this Avalanche team, and he's a big reason why they had such success. It's unfortunate that they ran into the Dallas Stars, and that was such a phenomenal series back there. But with the new generation, he's going to be up there in the top 10 conversations for a while. This is not going to be the last time we talk about him in the Norris Trophy conversations, no doubt. And he's a phenomenal young player over there in Colorado.
Yeah, for sure. You talk about Colorado. Sometimes it feels like they play on easy mode with Nathan MacKinnon over there, but Cale Makar is special in his own right, not just offensively where he gets a lot of credit, but his defensive ability, his defensive IQ, also up there with the best in the entire NHL. The last award that I think really matters, and the NHL has a lot of awards that don't matter, like the Selke Award for the best defensive offensive player. They've got the best, the guy that shows the most sportsmanship award. Awards that I don't really think that don't matter too much in the grand scheme of things. But the award, the Jack Norris Trophy, Jack Adams, award given out to the Coach of the Year, goes to Spencer Carberry, who led the Capitals to the best record in the Eastern Conference. This was the Capitals team that last season snuck into the playoffs. They were completely outmatched in the first round, and they got sent home. This is a team that was supposed to just be riding out the golden years of Alex Ovechkin, waiting for him to retire into the sunset with that Gretzky record. He goes on a tear this year. He breaks that Gretzky record. Spencer Carberry gets the best out of his guys. It wasn't just Alex Ovechkin and the old guys. You had Logan Thompson step up for the Washington Capitals in net. He kind of took over that starting job for them. You have a lot of young guys. It was a very fast Capitals team. This is a team that is built now to continue competing, which is not something I was expecting out of an old Capitals squad from last year. They figured it out. They were able to make some really big moves in the offseason, and he wins this award. This was the biggest surprise team in the NHL season this year. A lot of people didn't even have him making the playoffs. I had him sneaking as an 8 seed again in the East because of how kind of weak that bottom of the Eastern Conference is. But shout out to Spencer Carberry there, head coach of the year, winning the Jack Adams Award. It was an incredible coaching job he did with the Capitals this season.
Yeah, Spencer Carberry deserves all the credit in the world. A team in the Washington Capitals that, like you said, snuck into the playoffs last year. A team that I honestly had no expectations for. I thought the Carolina Hurricanes were going to take that division by storm. And instead, it was the Washington Capitals that not only were competitive, but won that division. With a guy like Alex Ovechkin spearheading that group, going after and breaking the Wayne Gretzky record, I think all of that culminating together, you have to give it to him. The only other candidate I could think of that you could put over him is the coach over there in Montreal, based off the way they were able to make a playoff berth this year and kind of just prove all the doubters wrong. But those are the two teams I'd say that really came out of nowhere that sparked a crazy run in the NHL. And honestly, major props to Spencer Carberry for his win.
Yeah. Lots of big news though from around the NHL. We've reached halftime in the NBA. The Thunder are absolutely demolishing the Pacers right now. 59-45, 14 points. Crucially, Tyrese Halliburton, no points right now. We're going to finish off the show just with a little instant reaction to that. Tyrese Halliburton, no points right now. They've really struggled from the field. They've missed a lot of open shots. You talk about a Pacers team that just looks defeated out there right now. What kind of adjustments do they need to make here in the second half if they want to stand some kind of chance?
Yeah, I think we both have the same guy in mind, and you brought him up. Tyrese Halliburton needs to get on the score sheet. He needs to be the leader of this Indiana Pacers team. And as much as I love Pascal Siakam, and he won Eastern Conference Finals MVP, Siakam runs off of Tyrese Halliburton. It is Halliburton that gets Siakam open in the low post. It is Halliburton that gets the entire offense going, the bench going. The offense rolls through him, and if he cannot get his offense going early, this is a Pacers team that finds itself stagnant time and time again. This is not the right time for a Tyrese Halliburton donut game. What do we want to call it? One of those 9.5 point games that we see out of him out of every 10, 15 games. But if it is so, maybe the betting lines were right when they put the spread at 10.5. Who knows? But this is a Thunder team that is going to cruise to wins time and time again when things like this happen. This is a major issue for the Pacers, and Rick Carlisle will get in Tyrese Halliburton's ear for sure. He's an experienced coach. He'll get this locker room ready to go for the second half. I don't think this game is over. I would be shocked if the Thunder keep this. I would be shocked if the Pacers don't make a push early on in the third quarter to try and cut into that deficit. But it's going to need to start with Tyrese Halliburton if they're going to have any chance of doing so.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This Pacers team is never down, never out. But I've also never seen the Pacers look this defeated. Like, you're seeing heads down, asking for fouls, not playing super hard. I mean, they're still playing hard, but not playing like that super tough Pacers level of basketball. They're never out of it, though. Halftime adjustments are what Rick Carlisle has been best at so far this playoffs. We'll have to see if they're able to make some changes here. It's going to be really interesting.
For sure. And on the Thunder side of things, it looks like Jalen Williams is keeping up his streak with 16 points. We're looking at Aaron Wiggins having a little bit of a resurgence in Game 2, shades of Game 2 when he had 20 points, having 9 points in the first half. That is crucial for him. The Thunder are just firing on all cylinders. And them playing like this, the pace, they must be just, we're not watching the game, obviously, we're here doing this. But if their offense is playing on this level and their defense is kind of matching up with them, if the Pacers feel like they have to score on every single possession, they're not able to stop the Thunder. This is issues like this come up, and this is not an excuse for Tyrese Halliburton, but it's an excuse for the rest of the team when you see a Thunder offense this efficient right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough, but it should be a great game. Lots of big stuff from around the world of sports. We will hopefully be back with you tomorrow talking about everything from around the world of sports, previewing Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals, going over Game 5 of the NBA Finals, and much more. We have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus and Mehrob. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that great.